Hey, my name is Leah, and today I'll be talking about history and methods of food safety. I was lucky enough to do my presentation for my research all on history and methods of food safety. And when doing my research, I was actually interested in um, farm to table food. So that will be a lot of what this presentation is on. In 1862, the first food safety laws that had ever came about were wrote by the USDA and signed into legislation by Abraham Lincoln. Then this is around the era of the railroad service. So cars, this is the first time that the United States was able to transport meat very far, and we realized that people were getting sick off of um, foods that had been transported very far from the railroad service. Um, so that was the first time we looked into refrigeration of meat and things like that. Sorry about that. Lots of years later, throughout history, our food safety laws have changed tremendously. From throughout the Great Depression, there was a lot of food safety laws, and then the Industrial Society caused us to change our food safety laws because it changed how we were processing our food. And then World War II was the next big food safety issue. In 2011, President Obama actually signed the biggest legislation that marked the biggest change of food safety marked to date. So that was huge. And I believe that food safety is a huge issue, not only across the world, but definitely in America. 48 million people every single year are getting sick from some type of foodborne illness. With that being said, our food safety and our food service is ran by a few very large food corporations and processing plants. Therefore, they have a lot of say in our food industry as well as work with our government to form our food safety laws. So it's not really a good thing to have people who are processing the food also regulating the safety measures as well. I believe that they're um, able to sweep a lot under the rug when doing that. One of the coolest things, or um, I guess coolest things I found while researching food safety would be cooking directions are not really on the back of food for our convenience. It's actually back there because it's able to make people reliable for the food that they eat if they're going to sick from it. So they're listing high enough temperatures to where it will eliminate any hazard in the food. Therefore, it does make the consumer reliable for what they have consumed instead of the food processing plant for having something in the food. While researching food safety, the biggest problem I found, I wanted to focus on the need of more farm-to-table regulation. So I chose this topic because right now I do feel like there's a huge craze for more farm-to-table restaurants, which I do believe is really cool. I think that it's a great idea to buy local and support local and all of that good stuff. But we need to make sure that the food that we're following does, or the food that we're eating does follow strict guidelines to ensure our safety as well. A few more things that I found very interesting when looking up farm to table food. There's actually no term used to describe, or there's no way to determine how restaurants describe farm to table. So if you're eating in a restaurant and the menu says farm to table, there's actually no laws and regulations for what they're calling farm to table and how they're using it. There is also no guidelines or recommendations for if somebody is using the term farm to table and their products are not coming straight from the farm. Another cool fact that I found is if you purchase a product that says bought locally or produced locally or something like that, that can be anywhere within 400 miles of the product. So I do believe that there needs to be some type of laws saying what farm to table is and what buying local is. Almost weekly there are food recalls. So all across America, the food industry is facing the hard fact that processing foods in an industrial way does put the consumer at risk. However, that would be one reason why farm to table is a great idea. However, there's no regulations for farm to table. So any products that is coming from a farm and straight to a restaurant are not being tested whatsoever. They're relying on the restaurant and the farmers to strictly examine the food and then be served. So that's putting a lot of trust in the farmer and the restaurant as well. Our country is still definitely lacking safety rules and regulations for farm to table consumption, as well as foods that can be classified as farm to table. So what exactly is happening from the food between the farm and the table? What all is it going through? What are we calling farm to table? And having a farm to table restaurant is a huge liability factor due to the chance of the consumer eating the food and getting sick. Like I said, that is putting a huge responsibility on the inspection of the food at the restaurant. Down here at the bottom, I have just a little link to an article about farm to table liability. And it's actually talking about a Texas meat packer that recently had metal shavings in their meat. 2 incidences just in July alone. So that was just a little link trying to persuade you to go with farm to table just because you know where that meat is coming from, or so you think. My design mark. So like I said, my problem is definitely the need of more farm to table regulations. And like I said, legally there is no definition for what farm to table actually means and where a farm is and what the food goes through before it gets to the table. And like I said, the USDA defines local food as anything sourced within 400 miles of that product. So with that being said, due to the lack of regulations for defining farm to table, our country is definitely way overusing that term. So many restaurants are advertising farm to table or buying local products and stuff like that. But that's usually a false advertisement, and it's usually just trying to draw customers in, because there's no way to really know what farm to table actually means to the state. The World Health Organization actually estimates that 2 million deaths occur worldwide from foodborne illness. So that means that we really need to find out what the problem of the foodborne illness is and try to make stricter regulations for that food. One of the major issues is meat, and it was really hard for me to find too much information on the process that meat from farm to table goes through, just because that term is not a specific term with a definite definition to it. So I believe that this is the perfect opportunity for our government to collaborate with the USDA to come up with that legal definition for what farm to table should stand for. So some of the ideas I had for making sure that our farm to table products are reliable would be our federal government taking control of this food to table, the state government taking control, local agencies taking control, volunteer organizations taking control, and the Agriculture Extension Agency, which is a branch of the USDA that works to educate and enforce new farm to table regulations. My developed solution, first and foremost, I believe that the most important thing will be finding a legal definition of farm to table. So that would be the U.S. government and the USDA working together to find what farm to table means, and also making stipulations for what happens to restaurants when they misuse the term as well. My solution for the federal government would be working with the USDA to write legislation, um, and having all meat tested to be deemed safe before being produced to consumers. Um, the biggest problem with this is it's going to higher the cost of farm to table foods, and it's going to hurt our local farmers as well. My solution for the state government would be the most ideal if any government is going to come in control, because different states are heavily populated with different areas of agriculture. So, like Iowa is huge in growing farms, Florida is huge in growing oranges, California is huge in growing pineapples, North Carolina was extremely prevalent in tobacco. So all of these different states are growing different things. Therefore, they need different regulations which each state could take control of. So I do believe that if the government's going to get in control, that the state government would be the best of the two. However, once again, I do believe that if the government is in control, it is going to higher the prices of any farm-to-table product. My next solution would be volunteers regulating the laws in of farm-to-table. However, I do believe that if it's a group of volunteers, especially farmers, that they would work together with their friends and maybe not recommend people that aren't following the rules, or if they go to a restaurant of someone that they know using farm to table, not in the correct manner, that they would sort of sweep it under and it would not be taken care of that way. The best solution I do have would be letting our agriculture extension agency write and enforce the safety regulations for farm to table. And then also, one of the main things that the agriculture extension agency does is offer classes to educate people about agriculture. So they could add an extra class about farm to table and how to keep products safe for consumers, as well as teach farmers the best way to keep farm to table food safe as well, and how to watch for unsafe food. So I do believe that this would be a great opportunity for their agency, and they could also hire local workers to run classes and check in with farms to enforce the regulations and things like that. As I was presenting my idea to them, I was actually sitting with some of my coworkers, and we work at North Iowa Hospital, which has the biggest FFA in North Carolina. And what I found is nobody truly knows what farm to table means. So I believe that that's the biggest step in my solution, is getting out there that farm to table actually has no regulations at this point, and writing regulations for farm to table. So my implications for each solution: I did decide that getting any government, federal or state, involved would higher the prices of any local foods or farm to table foods, which is something that I want to steer clear of. Like I said, if we have volunteers involved, this would be the least expensive route, but probably not the best for enforcing the regulations. I do believe that the Agriculture Extension Agency would be the most successful in promoting the safety rules and regulations, as well as educating society and farmers about consuming farm to table products. And the best thing about the Agriculture Extension Agency is they use land grants for all of their projects. Therefore, it would be paid for by the government without raising the cost. My proposed solution: I believe that the most important thing in farm to table safety would be, like I said, starting with the federal government and the USDA to work together to find a definition for farm to table. Once safety regulations are put in place, then everything else can sort of go in place as well. We can educate society as to what farm to table means and what buying locally means, and then we will be able to buy locally, use locally grown food, and educate our farmers as to the best way to do that as well. So the Agriculture Extension Agency uses the institution of higher learning and grants for a majority of their funding. The Agriculture Extension Agency works heavily to fight hunger insecurities in all different areas. It helps farmers adapt to the weather changing environment, so it uses scientifically based evidence on how to produce the most products in their farm, and it ensures that all foods are affordable and nutritious. So it's going to make sure that our farmers are not using extra pesticides and not using genetically modified fruits and vegetables and things like that. So it's going to make sure that our fruits and vegetables and all produce are going to be the most nutritious for us. I believe that this makes the Agriculture Extension Agency the perfect agency to take over the Farm to Table initiative. And like I've stated before, the most important part of my solution is informing the public about Farm to Table. So my solution is definitely twofold in the sense that we're informing the public about Farm to Table, and then also making sure that our local farmers and local restaurants are following the Farm to Table regulations. So definitely a great way to promote Farm to Table. My laws. Right now, I think that number one, the USDA and the Agriculture Extension Agency should work together to inform the United States about Farm to Table. So write the regulations and then teach everybody about what it is that we need to do to consume Farm to Table food. Next, we need to work with farmers and educate them on safety standards that are going to be set in place by the USDA, and hire agents to go out to farms to make sure that they're following the safe practices if they plan to be farm food regulated. And then last but not least, we need to make sure that we're promoting Farm to Table. So make sure that we're getting locally grown foods out there so that they can be used in society. Last, I did post a little video about America's view on Farm to Table and how we believe that food is grown in the farm and then pretty much placed right on our table, and we're forgetting the steps that goes through it, which needs to be the regulations that our government and USDA sets in place. Thank you for watching.